World Health Organization recently confirmed that 6 African countries, Egypt, Kenya, Nigeria, Senegal, South Africa, and Tunisia, will be the first on the continent to receive the technology needed to produce the mRNA vaccines. This week on Africa Weekly, we will be focusing on how this will change the narrative around the COVID-19 vaccination drive in the continent. Now, other issues of development around the continent are also on the package, and I am Charles Alpha, welcoming you to Africa Weekly. Now, poor access to COVID-19 vaccine has been one of the major drawbacks for Africa since the emergence of COVID-19 pandemic. The mRNA vaccines hub for Africa may just be the initiative to close this gap and offers the African continent a chance to beat the virus. The World Health Organization said 6 African countries, Egypt, Kenya, Nigeria, Senegal, South Africa, and Tunisia, will be the first on the continent to receive the technology needed to produce mRNA vaccines.
WHO will work with the companies and the government in each country to develop a roadmap for training and production.
The technology transfer project launched last year aims to help low and middle income countries manufacture mRNA vaccines at scale and according to international standards.
Let us tackle obstacles together and demonstrate to the world that Africa has the ability, the scientists and industries to provide the vaccines, the therapeutics and diagnostics needed to manage African health.
mRNA is the advanced technology used by companies such as Pfizer BioNTech and Moderna for their COVID-19 shots. The WHO established its global mRNA vaccine technology transfer hub after vaccine hoarding by wealthy countries. This pushed low and middle income countries to the back of the queue for COVID-19 vaccines. Joining me now live from Johannesburg, South Africa, is Professor Padmasree Sampath. He is the chairperson of the Technical Advisory Group of the COVID-19 Technology Access Pool of the World Health Organization. Prof, we are glad to have you on Africa Weekly.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure to be here.
All right, to begin with now, can you educate our viewers on what mRNA vaccines is all about?
So mRNA, or messenger RNA, is the set of instructions that our cells use to make proteins to send them all over our body. So mRNA vaccines, they typically use the normal biological processes that exist in our body to create a therapeutic effect. So what happens when you inject a COVID-19 mRNA vaccine is that it teaches our cells to create a substance called a spike protein. And this spike protein helps us to create the immunological response against coronavirus. And once this spike protein is created in our body, then our cells flush the mRNA out of the body.
Okay, that's okay. Now, the WHO proposed African hub for mRNA vaccines, and 6 African countries have been selected, to begin production of these vaccines. Are you confident of the capacity of the selected countries to house this initiative?
Oh yes, absolutely. I think that this is a great news that these 6 countries are technology recipients of the WHO's mRNA hub, which is now created in South Africa. As part of this collaboration, in the 6 countries, there will be a technology transfer and capacity building that will be actually conducted by the hub in South Africa. And towards the end of it, I think that we can anticipate capacity in each one of these countries to produce COVID mRNA vaccines or other mRNA substances.
Okay, now, what impact will this make, in enhancing access to COVID-19 vaccine to a vast population of the African continent?
Well, I mean, most of Africa today doesn't have access to COVID-19 vaccine at all. We're not even talking about having access to the mRNA vaccine. But large parts of Africa today don't have access to any COVID-19 vaccine. So I think that building this production capacity is a very important first step to addressing the scarcity of drugs and vaccines that we face today in the African region. Now, whether these 6 facilities will be up and running very soon to help us to deal with the shortage of COVID-19 vaccines, it's not clear. Actually, to be honest with you, I don't see these facilities up and running until 2024 or end of 2023. And by then, whether the pandemic is still on and in which form it's still on, we don't know. But the significance of these 6 countries becoming part of this hub and the significance of building production capacity is much larger. This simply means that for all future reasons, we will have the capacity to produce mRNA vaccines and possibly mRNA drugs in the continent, and this is really important.
Okay, and now you were saying that you don't see this happening in the nearest maybe 2 to 3 years. Now, during this period that you're not sure if this will be up and running, what should African countries be doing as it has to do with being able to get vaccine and attend to this pandemic for those countries who are still battling with COVID-19?
I'm very positive. I'm extremely optimistic that these 6 countries will succeed to build these production plants, and we will have fill and finish capacity for mRNA vaccines in many countries in Africa in the future. Simply because, take the case of Egypt, of Kenya, of Nigeria, and Senegal. These are countries that already have some sort of production capacity for drugs or vaccines. Okay. So expanding on that, we can actually move into the mRNA space, and we can create the capacity for these countries and firms in these countries to produce mRNA vaccines. Now, producing mRNA vaccines is not just important for COVID-19. Right. mRNA technology is a broad-based technology that we can use actually to produce all kinds of different vaccines, and we can use also to produce drugs. Today, mRNA technologies are very nascent. We don't know what else we can do with it. But creating the production capacity in our countries is a first step. And once we create this capacity, we can use it to do a whole lot of different things.
All right, so now before I let you go, Prof, now what kind of support are you emphasizing from institutions like the African Development Bank and other stakeholders to ensure the success of this proposal?
Yeah, I think that we need to give a lot of support. Governments need to stand behind the firms that are chosen for this endeavor now as part of this collaboration, and give them every kind of support possible to build capacity, to participate in the tech transfer agreement, but also we need tacit skills and know-how that needs to be generated within these countries. They need to be available to absorb the technology that the mRNA hub is creating in South Africa. What we also need actually is finance, of course. Oh, yeah. And here is the place where agencies like the African Development Bank, they become extraordinarily important. And in the last 1 year, if not more, the African Development Bank has actually signaled enormous amount of goodwill and a commitment to support vaccine production in Africa. And this commitment and goodwill is not just simply to finance. The commitment and goodwill that you see from agencies now in Africa, like the African Development Bank, the African Union, and the Africa CDC, we need to harness that. We need to leverage that. Because in the past, African firms have had difficulties matching finance with technology in order to build competitive enterprises. And this is the time that we need to bring this together. We need to bring finance together with technology, and we need to use this opportunity to boost this sector. And I think for this, the African Development Bank, the African Union, and new agencies like the African Medicines Agency, they will play a very key role in the future.
All right, Professor, we want to say thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with us on this vital topic. Many thanks to you for coming on Africa Weekly.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
All right, okay, so that was a Professor Sabati from South Africa, Johannesburg, sharing her thought there on the 6 countries that have been selected to begin production of mRNA vaccines. Up next is the tidbits. Please do stay with us. ECOWAS is redesigning its human protection and security agenda to be individual focused. A roadmap for the actualization of the agenda in Nigeria is being developed at a high-level session of stakeholders in Abuja, Nigeria.
The idea behind the new human security agenda is to tailor the various interventions to specific needs and characteristics of citizens of ECOWAS member countries, particularly the vulnerable groups and children and their rights in the context of COVID-19.
Our focus here is on protection and human security, not just taking human security bit by bit, defense, immigration, and all that, women affairs. We want to bring as many stakeholders as possible that have shared responsibility to deliver on protection and human security of the individual.
50% of Nigerian children engage in child labor, with a large number on the streets. Also, reports about child survivors of sexual abuse, especially girls, are rising exponentially as a hidden pandemic takes hold.
We must address the challenges to survival and find a lasting solution to dwindling livelihood and improve the dignity of the human person, first in Nigeria and then within the ECOWAS sub-region.
The 3-day advocacy and capacity building sessions are expected to culminate in the development of a document for implementation of the agenda and will be coordinated in Nigeria by the Office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation.
And regional cooperation and unified legislation can make significant impact in redesigning of major security concerns among African nations. Chairman Benin Republic Constitutional Court Sir Joseph Njobengno stated during an audience with the leadership of the Network of African Parliamentarians for Defense and Security Committees in Cotonou.
This is the highest court for constitutional matters in the Republic of Benin. The court makes final decisions on administrative, judicial, and electoral matters. Sir Joseph Jobenu is the chairman of the court. He described as a well-thought idea the formation of a network of African parliamentarians for defense and security committees, stressing the need for stronger and closer working relationship among African legislators towards curbing the menace of terrorism, internal and transboundary crimes.
It primarily seeks to provide a platform for knowledge sharing among members of the committees and, of course, major stakeholders of regional and continental security challenges.
Shaban Sharada, who chairs the Nigeria's House of Representatives Committee on National Security and Intelligence, told the #1 judicial officer that the network is not only working with African parliamentarians, but relevant institutions, including the judiciary.
Now we'll bring you accounts of the experiences, travels, and courage of Nigerians, especially students fleeing the war in Ukraine, while drawing inspiration from hundreds who have safely arrived back in the shore of Nigeria, courtesy of the evacuation plan put in place by the government of Nigeria.
This was the 4th of March, and it was a flight much anticipated and eagerly expected by many in Nigeria. The relief and the hope on these faces still could not wipe the pains and travails they had experienced after being stuck in war-ridden Ukraine. Relief blended with excitement of survival as they moved more into the safe embrace of the arrival terminal of the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, Abuja. And even when a child's cry seemed to take the mother back to their immediate past ordeal, it still felt safer and a consolation after several days of uncertainty. February 24, the day the Russian-Ukraine war started, changed many things for many in Ukraine, including the Nigerians living there. Mariam and Eric are among those affected. They are both medical students studying in Ukraine, counting on just a few weeks to complete their studies.
We just woke up to news of several explosions in other cities on Thursday morning. I can't remember precisely the day because I'm still trying to clear my head and understand what all happened. But then in the morning, just before 8, we had another explosion. There was a loud explosion and vibration in the building we lived, so things haven't been the same since then.
The disruption of lives caused by the war has cost them so much. Accounts of what some underwent in their struggles to get out of the conflict are better imagined than experienced.
I mean, there's a lot of anxiety, and anytime the night approaches, we couldn't sleep because we know that the siren will definitely wake us up and there's no way you could sleep. So and if there's anything, you have to run down to the bunkers to seek shelter. And we've been doing that for days before we left. And you know, the confusion, the chaos, and the uncertainty, not knowing what to do, and was all this stuff.
Many spend days in the buses conveying them to the borders of neighboring countries like Poland, Romania, Hungary, and Slovakia.
Getting to the border, we met a couple of Indian students who had told us that they had waited for 2, 3, some even said 4 days at the border.
The evacuation of Nigerians continues, with focus now shifting particularly to those trapped in the northeastern Ukrainian city of Sumy. The commitment by Nigeria for safety of its citizens, the global dialogue and mediation to end the conflict are on course. But one thing is certain, the trauma will stay with these Nigerian returnees and survivors for a bit more. But time, they say, heals all.
The Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, has commenced the construction of regional power line to connect member states under the West African Power Pool. A flag of construction in Niger Republic, member countries will state commitment to the implementation of the project, which will increase access to electricity and boost economy of the sub-region.
875 kilometers power line to be constructed across ECOWAS member countries to achieve unified electricity market for energy sufficiency in the sub-region. Foundation laid in Gondubanda at the outskirts of Niamey, Niger Republic, to commence construction of the power line. Nigeria's Minister of Power, Abubakar Aliyu, and his counterpart of defense, who represented President Muhammadu Buhari, joined ECOWAS chairman and Ghanaian president, as well as Niger president, to flag off the project. $568 million is to be expended on the project, which African Development Bank, World Bank, French Development Agency, and NEPAD are financing.
2021.
At the opening of the 33rd session of ECOWAS West African Power Pool Ministerial Meeting, Nigeria restates its commitment to ensuring that the sub-regional electricity project is completed.
And that's our package this week on Africa Weekly. Many thanks to you for staying with us. I am Charles Alpha. Bye-bye.